Hello, welcome back. Sophie had a really good question. She sent it in and said, "What's with this tiling background stuff?" And I figured, let's just have a look at this because I guess when we talked about the whole 960 thing, there's this line here, which is where the 960 ends. And traditionally, we would put this whole thing in a box and center it, and then when we zoom out, um, that would all kind of take up the middle part of the screen. But you might not necessarily want that. And again, you can see this whole tiling effect happening, and I'm just zooming out for those of you, you can do zoom out this way. But the idea behind it is that when you zoom in or zoom out, something's happening with the background. And there's one place which has a good explanation of how to fix this, but I just wanted to show you another example of what it is that we're looking at. Specifically, if we change this elephant to the button.png that we had, let's just have a look at that. What you've got here now is all those elephant images, right? And if I go in here, I have this property which is called background. If I can spell, repeat, and you can say only repeat on the y-axis. And what that does is it basically doesn't repeat from the left to the right, just up and down. So again, you can get some cool patterns and things and put them in there if you want. That's a solution. If you say repeat none, so no repeat, sorry, then what you get is this one little image up in the top right hand corner. And we can't see it because this amazing animals things on top of it. So I'm just going to delete the menu so you can see it behind there. And that's again a no repeat situation. So if we went back to having our original of 960.jpg, let's have a look at that. What you get is you get that white area on the side. So again, if someone's on a large screen, they might get lots of this white space and it'll look weird for them. So there is another reason why we need to box this up into another div, which we haven't done yet, we won't do right now. But I did want to explain the background kind of repeating and all of those bits and bobs. However, if you understand that that's the default behavior of the browser, then what's the solution? Well, there's a solution on CSS Tricks, which you can kind of read about a little bit about. So the perfect full page backgrounds, it's a little bit old, but it's been updated. One of the things that you can see is that we're trying to make this thing kind of stretch out. And the way that you can do that is by copying this code, potentially. Let's just grab that. Going into your Dreamweaver file, and instead of this no repeat thing, changing it to being this. So you have the WebKit version, the Mozilla version, the Opera version, and the fallback once those are all implemented. Because again, if you remember, these prefixes are there because the browser manufacturers are introducing these, and until they're all agreed upon, then you have to have all of these versions for the same thing. And then eventually it'll just be that one that's necessary once everyone agrees on it. But at the moment, WebKit, which is your Safari browser and your Chrome browser, they have a different opinion on how this is implemented. Firefox has its own opinion, the Opera browser has its own opinion, and they all differ, so you have to kind of write it this way. However, anyway, you get this, you put it in place, you save it, you go back in here, refresh that, and now you see the whole background image is there. Now what happens if I zoom out is all those other elements get small, and if I zoom in, all those other elements get big, but the image itself will stay the same size. So that's a quick fix if you do actually want to have a background that spans the whole thing. What we might look at tomorrow is how do we actually box this and have this kind of centered in the middle, because that's another thing that I want to look at. But generally speaking, that's just a design choice. Do I want that image to be full screen? Do I want it to be there in the background? And what that also means is that it kind of locks it in place. So you need to be sure you want to do that. But hopefully that gives you some ideas around how that works. Obviously you can use tiling to get some cool effects on the side. You could have like note paper, as a background or something like that, so that it gives it that illusion of someone's looking at your notepad. So all cool things like that are possible, but you just need to decide. So by default, it does repeat So you have all of these kind of options around your background, but let's just type it properly. Sorry guys, having to put up with me. So these are all the different things that you can kind of pick from. By default it always repeats, which is why that initially, I'll take these out, when you look at what we had originally, this background starts to repeat on the right hand side. And again, if you just stretch it out and you see that, it always kind of just fills in the space. So that's the general idea of what kind of repeat does. If you do decide that you don't want that and you want this whole cover thing instead, just be aware that the result of that basically is that when you do make this smaller, the image will also resize. So that's what a cover fill does. So I'm not always a fan of this because I don't always want that effect to happen. And therefore, if you do have it set and you've got everything at a certain size, then when you come to this page, that's all that's really happening. So do decide if you do want to cover or if you want to have it fixed or whatever you want to do, but be aware that there are some options around that background. So especially when you're trying to build this thing and you're making that decision, that's the stuff you can explore, have a look at. This is just one of the many ways. I mean, this article is a long article. There's lots of different variations on what you can do. So do check that out if you want to read more about that. I'll link it in the description. But generally speaking, yeah, you can do a lot of cool things with the backgrounds. And the browser manufacturers are all kind of looking at adding more things as we go. So obviously there'll be more things that you can look at. Anyway, hopefully that's been a cool tip for today. We will catch up tomorrow. Probably look at the boxing of this in so that we can center it. But if you've got other questions that are more important before then, please let me know and I'll get onto that tomorrow. Alright, speak to you guys later. Bye.